Beneath the quiet floors of a suburban home, an entire graveyard waited to be uncovered. How could a man who hosted neighborhood barbecues hide such an abyss of horror beneath his feet? What twisted mask allowed him to walk freely while countless families searched for missing sons? Stay with me, because the truth buried under that house is far darker, far stranger, and far more deliberate than anyone imagined. John Wayne Gacy's story begins in a place that looked nothing like the cradle of a future monster. Chicago's southwest side in the 1940s was a world of tidy lawns, factory schedules, and families who believed hardship was something to be swallowed quietly. In that environment, young Gacy learned early that appearances mattered more than truth. His father, a man hardened by war and whiskey, treated emotion as weakness. Praise was rare, and distrust was constant. The boy grew up chasing approval he would never receive, already learning to build the masks he would one day weaponize. As he entered adolescence, the contradictions around him grew sharper. At school, he was the smiling volunteer. At home, he was the disappointment. He fainted often, suffered bouts of illness, and struggled to meet expectations he never fully understood. Every failure fueled his determination to become the kind of man people admired, or at least the kind they feared. What he lacked in confidence, he compensated with charm. What he lacked in direction, he compensated with performance. By early adulthood, Gacy discovered a powerful truth. People trusted him when he acted like someone worth trusting. He learned to perfect the handshake, the congratulatory tone, the community spirit. He joined social clubs, shook hands with politicians, and studied every room like a stage he needed to control. His early jobs reflected that instinct. He gravitated toward positions where authority was small but visible, where he could wear a uniform, where he could be addressed with respect. Supervising, organizing, managing, all roles that allowed him to craft a version of himself that was dependable and clean. While he built this public identity, he also discovered something darker about himself. He thrived when he held power over those who had none. His first marriage gave him a home, children, and the suburban routine he thought he wanted. But behind that facade, his impulses grew more demanding. His drinking increased. His temper sharpened. The gap between his image and his inner world stretched so far that only deception could hold it together. Then came his move to Iowa, a place that offered him a fresh start and a new canvas for reinvention. There, he became a respected manager at a fast food chain, a friendly face in a small town searching for stability, and a rising figure in the local Jaycees. He organized meetings, led projects, and treated every handshake as an investment in his image. People admired him. Parents trusted him. Teenagers saw him as an adult who talked to them, not at them. And Gacy enjoyed every second of that influence. But behind the polished smile, he was escalating. He began seeking out vulnerable young men, testing boundaries, studying how far he could push before suspicion followed. His behavior became reckless, then predatory. Eventually, accusations surfaced, accusations that shattered his carefully crafted identity. The courtroom that awaited him was not a stage he could charm his way through, and for the first time, the mask slipped publicly. His conviction should have been the end of his ambitions. Yet even in prison, Gacy adapted. He worked, volunteered, charmed, manipulated, and convinced officials that he deserved another chance. And astonishingly, he got it. When he walked out after serving only a fraction of his sentence, he was ready to rebuild everything he had lost and ready to hide everything he had become. But Chicago was different now. He was different now, and the basement of the house he would soon purchase would stand waiting, its soil still untouched, unaware that it was about to become the silent witness to one of the most horrifying secrets in American history. Before we continue, hit subscribe so you do not miss the next chapter of this descent. Tell me in the comments, what part of Gacy's early life strikes you as the first crack in the mask? When John Wayne Gacy returned to Chicago after his release, he walked into the city with the confidence of a man who believed he had outsmarted the world. He carried the same charm, the same rehearsed humility, the same polished persona he had perfected for years. But now, something inside him had shifted. Prison had not punished him. It had refined him. It taught him what people wanted to hear, what authorities looked for, and most importantly, how to disguise his impulses behind a thicker, colder mask. His second chance did not inspire gratitude. It gave him permission. Upon his return, he bought a modest house on West Somerdale Avenue. It looked ordinary, a kind of quiet suburban property no one would question. He renovated it himself, proud of the independence it symbolized, yet every room he repaired, every wall he repainted, was also part of a stage he was building. The neighbors saw a hard-working man with a booming, contracting business. They saw the friendly host of backyard gatherings, the cheerful entertainer in a brightly colored clown costume for community events. They never saw how meticulously he planned the image, or how desperately he needed people to believe it. His construction company, PDM Contractors, quickly became the gateway through which young men entered his life. Some were hired for a few hours, others for days, but all of them walked into the orbit of a man who understood how to exploit vulnerability. He recruited boys who needed money, stability, guidance. Boys who were too inexperienced to recognize the danger behind his generosity. He paid them well, fed them, joked with them, treated them as if they were part of something important. Inside those casual conversations, he was studying them, weighing their fears, testing their boundaries with subtle comments and manipulative warmth. As the business grew, so did his confidence. He discovered that the quieter he seemed, the more people overlooked the inconsistencies in his behavior. He threw parties, invited police officers, shook hands with local politicians, and positioned himself as a dependable figure who supported community causes. Every handshake was a shield. Every volunteer appearance was a diversion. Even the clown persona he embraced, Patches, became an extension of his strategy. Dressed in that costume, he could act bizarre, unpredictable, even dark, and people would laugh it off. They expected clowns to be eccentric. They never considered the possibility that he was taking notes, rehearsing control in another form. Inside the privacy of his home, however, the facade day cracked open. The basement became his sanctuary of dominance. The walls absorbed every outburst, every whisper, every shift in tone as he refined the rituals that empowered him. He experimented with techniques to lure, restrain, and silence. Each act made him bolder. Each successful deception convinced him he was untouchable. He kept souvenirs, not as memories, but as trophies reminding him of the authority he held over the people no one would miss quickly enough. But even a man who believed he was invisible could not avoid friction. Some employees noticed his unpredictable mood swings. Others sensed something unsettling in the way he hovered too closely or insisted on private conversations. A few young men mentioned strange encounters to their families, descriptions that did not match the cheerful, community-minded contractor everyone else knew. Yet because Gacy had invested so deeply in his reputation, those concerns drifted into the background. People dismissed them as misunderstandings, exaggerations, or the complaints of troubled teens. Still, the tension around him slowly tightened. Each disappearance left behind a family filled with rising fear, and although the cases initially felt unconnected, a pattern was forming. Gacy knew it. The city did not. The authorities did not. And he believed that if he moved with caution and precision, no one would ever trace the shadows back to his doorstep. What he did not expect was that one small mistake, one miscalculation, would soon open the first crack in his fortress and draw unwanted eyes toward the house he thought would keep his secrets buried forever. The first real fracture in John Wayne Gacy's carefully constructed world began with a single disappearance. It should have been another vanishing that slipped through the cracks of a busy city. But this time, the missing boy had people who refused to be silent. Still, before that moment of reckoning arrived, Gacy continued expanding the double life he believed no one would ever piece together. Throughout the mid-1970s, his basement and crawl space became the center of his secret rituals. The house on West Somerdale Avenue held an atmosphere that visitors could not entirely explain. Some felt sudden chills. Others noticed the stale, heavy odor Gacy blamed on plumbing issues or damp soil. No one imagined the truth. The crawl space beneath the house was slowly turning into a burial chamber constructed body by body. Gacy approached this process with disturbing precision. He organized the underground area like a project, digging trenches with determination, mapping the spaces, returning again and again to expand the grotesque labyrinth. To him, it was control made physical, control that no one could contest. Above ground, his life remained the picture of normality. He attended parades, shook hands with public officials, and continued performing as Patches the Clown. That persona, painted with exaggerated smiles and warped patterns, allowed him to act out impulses under the guise of entertainment. He enjoyed making people uncomfortable, laughing when children backed away, or when adults said they felt unsettled. The costume let him cross invisible boundaries without consequence, reinforcing the belief that everything in his world was malleable, bendable, manageable. Meanwhile, Gacy's contracting business kept pulling more young men into his orbit. The boys he hired often came from unstable homes, or they were runaways drifting through the city's margins. Gacy instinctively recognized vulnerability, treating it like a scent only he could smell. He offered them work, meals, drinks, a place to relax. In those moments, he played the role of mentor or friend, but always with an eye on opportunity. When he sensed uncertainty, when he sensed fear, when he sensed a boy who had no one watching, he pushed further. Rumors started to swirl among some of the teens who knew him. Whispers about strange behavior, unexpected aggression, sudden invitations that felt wrong. Yet the community saw a man deeply involved in charity events, a man who donated his time, a man who helped neighbors repair broken fences and offered support during difficult moments. The good overshadowed the questionable, and the doubts faded each time he smiled and called someone buddy with manufactured warmth. But every system has a breaking point. By 1978, the disappearances surrounding Gacy were no longer isolated incidents lost in the noise of a large city. Families were filing reports. Descriptions overlapped, patterns formed. One boy vanished on his way home from work. Another disappeared after mentioning a job opportunity. A third was last seen talking to a man driving a car that matched Gacy's. Though police had not connected the dots, the threads were tightening around him. The turning point arrived with the disappearance of a teenage boy whose routine was predictable, whose family was persistent, and whose final movements were witnessed by enough people to establish a timeline. For the first time, Gacy felt the weight of investigation creeping toward him. Detectives began knocking on doors, gathering statements, comparing notes. One witness claimed to have seen the boy speaking with Gacy. Another mentioned his presence at the store where the teen was last seen. It was circumstantial, but it was enough to place a faint spotlight on a man who had lived comfortably in the shadows. When police first questioned him, Gacy remained calm, confident, almost amused. He denied everything with the ease of a man who believed he was untouchable. He offered explanations, provided stories, joked with officers as if the entire situation were a minor inconvenience. But beneath his composure, a silent calculation was unfolding. He realized he could no longer rely solely on charm. The investigation was no longer abstract. It had a direction, and that direction was pointing at him. As the scrutiny intensified, Gacy began making frantic decisions behind closed doors. He drank more, slept less, paced through his house at odd hours. The crawl space, once a place of empowerment, now felt like a reminder that every secret he buried could be unearthed. Something was slipping from his grasp, and he knew it. And still, the detectives kept coming back. The investigation into John Wayne Gacy intensified in a way he had never experienced before. What began as routine questioning evolved into relentless surveillance. Detectives followed him through the city streets, watched his movements, took note of every person who entered or exited his home. Gacy, who once thrived on control, now felt the pressure of eyes he could not charm, deceive, or manipulate. The officers assigned to him were not fooled by polite smiles or friendly greetings. They saw through the facade, and every hour that passed tightened the net around him. The missing boy's family pushed the case forward with unwavering determination. Their persistence forced authorities to examine every detail, every timeline, every inconsistency in Gacy's statements. One contradiction led to another. His stories shifted. His alibis wavered. Each time detectives returned, they found new reasons to doubt him. Gacy sensed the shift, and paranoia began to distort his once calculated behavior. He started calling police officers by their first names, offering them coffee, trying to act as though this was nothing more than a misunderstanding. But behind the cordial tone, he could feel himself losing grip. The detectives executed a search warrant on his house, expecting answers, but not yet imagining the depth of horror beneath the floorboards. They combed through rooms, closets, storage spaces, noting the strange odors, the unusual patches of freshly disturbed soil, the oversized crawl space door. Nothing found was enough to make an arrest, but everything discovered raised more questions. The officers left with a sinking feeling that something unspeakable was hidden in that house, something far darker than a single missing boy. Gacy knew the investigation was accelerating, so he tried to control the narrative once more. He visited friends and associates, attempting to maintain normality. He attended a funeral. He went out for dinner. But his behavior became erratic. He rambled, repeated himself, vacillated between calm politeness and sudden anger. He confessed shocking statements to acquaintances, only to retract them hours later. It was as if the pressure had ruptured the persona he spent decades constructing. The man who once moved through life with calculated precision was now unraveling publicly. Meanwhile, the surveillance team watched it all. They noticed the late-night drives, the frantic pacing, the sudden disappearances inside his own home for long stretches of time. They listened carefully as Gacy's associates reported strange conversations in which he hinted at crimes no one wanted to believe. Every word added another piece to a puzzle that was rapidly forming a terrifying image. The turning point of the investigation came when a piece of evidence connected Gacy directly to the missing teenager. A receipt found in the boy's jacket linked to someone Gacy had employed. It was not definitive proof, but it was enough to justify pushing harder. Detectives marked the moment as the shift from suspicion to certainty. Whatever was happening inside that house, it was tied to Gacy, and they were determined to uncover it. As psychological pressure mounted, Gacy reached a breaking point. He visited his lawyer in a frantic state, muttering about past mistakes, hinting at crimes he refused to fully articulate, then collapsing under the weight of his own guilt. His mental state deteriorated so dramatically that even those closest to him realized something catastrophic was about to surface. The detectives, sensing they were on the edge of a discovery that could explode into national horror, prepared for another search. They felt it in their bones. The smell, the inconsistencies, the way Gacy watched them with a twisting smile that never reached his eyes. Everything pointed towards something buried, literally buried, beneath the structure of the house he had treated as his fortress. And then, in a single moment, everything changed. A technician inspecting the crawl space area encountered a patch of soil that felt disturbingly soft. It was a detail small enough to miss, yet profound enough to break the case open completely. Officers paused, exchanged a quiet look that carried both dread and resolve, and prepared for the discovery that would define the investigation forever. The moment investigators re-entered John Wayne Gacy's home with the second search warrant, a sense of inevitability filled the air. Officers moved through the rooms with a different kind of focus, no longer searching for hints or contradictions, but for something solid, something final. The crawl space, that low, suffocating chamber beneath the house, drew their attention like a gravitational pull. The strange odor lingering for months, explained away by Gacy with casual excuses, now carried a new chilling weight. Detectives knelt beside the entrance, flashlights in hand, knowing that whatever they found would rewrite everything they believed about this case. A single technician crawled forward, feeling the damp earth beneath his palms. The air thickened. The beam of his flashlight revealed ridges in the soil, subtle depressions that did not match natural settling. He pressed his hand into the ground, and the soil gave way too easily. It felt loose, recently disturbed, wrong. He called out in a steady voice, but inside, a current of dread flickered. As he dug just a few inches, his fingers brushed against something that was neither stone nor root, a texture unmistakably tied to human presence. He froze, inhaled sharply, and backed away to alert the team. What followed was a quiet, heavy pause, as if the house itself exhaled after years of holding its secrets. Detectives gathered at the opening, exchanging glances filled with horror, certainty, and grim duty. More officers entered the crawl space. Tools scraped against soil. Flashlights swept across the ground. And then the confirmation came. Human remains. Not one, not two, but the unmistakable outline of several bodies buried in shallow graves beneath the home of a man who had smiled his way through community events and charmed his way into public trust. The house transformed instantly into a crime scene of unprecedented scale. Investigators marked sections, documented every inch, and began a slow, methodical excavation. As each layer of soil was removed, new remains appeared, arranged with disturbing order, as though Gacy had built his own graveyard with deliberate intention. The officers worked in silence, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they were uncovering. News of the discovery spread rapidly. Squadrons of police, journalists, and stunned neighbors crowded the street outside. People who once attended Gacy's parties now stared at the home with disbelief, trying to reconcile the friendly contractor they knew with the monstrous reality emerging from below. More bodies surfaced. Some were identified quickly, others remained unknown. The count rose in a way that left investigators shaken. They realized they were dealing with one of the most prolific killers in American history, a man who dug graves just feet below where he ate, slept, and laughed. Meanwhile, Gacy himself was unraveling. Faced with incontrovertible evidence, he drifted between denial and confession. In one breath, he blamed others. In the next, he offered chilling admissions. His mind raced as the empire he built through manipulation and performance collapsed under the weight of truth. Each discovery tightened the noose around him, revealing the unimaginable scope of his crimes. Authorities continued digging, mapping the crawl space like a nightmarish blueprint. Every new grave told a story of trust betrayed, of vulnerability exploited, of lives stolen by a man who believed he would never be caught. And as the final corners of the crawl space were uncovered, one question consumed both the investigators and the nation. How many more secrets were still hidden? And how deep did Gacy's darkness truly go? Before we descend into the final revelation of his downfall, be sure to subscribe so you do not miss the conclusion. And tell me in the comments, what part of this discovery chills you the most? The excavation beneath John Wayne Gacy's house transformed from a crime scene into a historical reckoning. As investigators removed layer after layer of damp soil, the final count of victims continued to rise. Each new discovery deepened the tragedy, revealing how many young men had vanished without anyone linking their disappearances to the same smiling contractor. By the time authorities finished cataloging every set of remains, it was clear that Gacy had constructed not just a burial site, but a necropolis hiding in plain sight. Outside the home, a storm of attention erupted. National news outlets descended upon the suburban street, broadcasting every update with mounting shock. Families of missing boys arrived hoping for answers, clinging to fading threads of hope that their sons might still be alive. The reality that awaited them was cruel. As dental records and personal items confirmed identities one by one, relief turned into grief, and grief quickly turned into fury. Many asked the same haunting question: how could a man who entertained children as a clown and shook hands with local officials build a kingdom of death beneath his floor? Gacy, confronted with the full weight of his actions, moved into a state of strange, fractured acceptance. During interrogations, he fluctuated between calm descriptions of his crimes and erratic attempts to blame accomplices who never existed. To some investigators, he spoke as though recounting a construction project, detaching himself from the horror. To others, he expressed twisted pride, claiming he alone knew how to handle the young men he lured. His words offered glimpses into a psyche devoid of remorse, a mind fueled by dominance and deception. The courtroom that awaited him became the theater of his final performance. Spectators filled every bench, drawn by the magnitude of the case and the chilling figure at its center. Prosecutors presented evidence with meticulous precision: the remains, the timelines, the testimonies, the patterns of manipulation. They described the crawl space in vivid detail, emphasizing the intent behind every shallow grave. Their narrative painted a clear picture of a man who acted with purpose, planning, and utter disregard for human life. Gacy sat through the proceedings with unsettling composure, occasionally smiling, occasionally sketching, as though detached from the reality of what was unfolding. His defense attempted to frame him as mentally unfit, arguing that no sane man could commit such acts. But the prosecution countered with overwhelming evidence of calculation: the hiring strategies, the targeted victims, the careful disposal of evidence. The jury needed little time to reach a conclusion. They found him guilty on multiple counts of murder, sentencing him to death. In the years that followed, Gacy lived on death row, granting interviews that only deepened the public's fascination and revulsion. He painted, wrote letters, and continued insisting he was innocent of most charges, clinging to the persona he created long before his arrest. Yet every interview, every statement, revealed cracks in the illusion. He spoke in circles, contradicted himself, and expressed irritation that people remained focused on his crimes rather than his supposed talents. Even behind bars, he expected admiration. Executions in Illinois were rare, but Gacy's case became a symbol of justice long delayed. On the night of his execution, protesters gathered outside the prison, some demanding his death, others opposing capital punishment. Inside, Gacy offered a final statement that embodied his lifelong delusion. He claimed his execution was a political move and uttered a remark that shocked even seasoned reporters. Then, with the same arrogance that marked his life, he faced the end. When the lethal injection took effect, there was no dramatic confession, no final attempt at redemption, just silence. After years of manipulation, lies, and horror, his voice finally disappeared. But the echoes of his crimes remained etched into the national psyche. The house on West Somerdale Avenue was eventually demolished, reduced to rubble in an attempt to erase the physical memory of what lay beneath it. But the ground itself held history too dark to forget. Forensic teams, families, and investigators understood a truth that would linger for generations. The real legacy of John Wayne Gacy was not his persona, not his performances, not his public life. It was the graveyard he built in secret, the lives he ended, and the reminder that evil can hide behind the most unassuming smile. In the end, The truth about John Wayne Gacy was far worse than anyone imagined. It was not just a story of violence, but a story of deception perfected over decades. A story of charm used as a weapon. A story of a man who buried his victims beneath his home, believing the soil would keep his secrets forever. He was wrong. The earth gave them back. The truth rose to the surface, and the world never forgot.